I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's an activist, political organizer, serial entrepreneur for good, and of course an author too, and the author of the book Powerful, Inspiring Leaders, Prophetic for a Better World Activism. No other than Mr. Faizan Syed. Welcome, Mr. Faizan, on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Faizan Syed. I'm a civil rights activist here in the United States, living in Dallas, Texas. And my entire career, I've really focused on defending the civil rights of people from discrimination, from being targeted for their race, religion, ethnicity. And recently, I authored my first book called Powerful Prophetic Activism, Inspiring Leaders for a Better World, in order to really give everyday people like yourself and others the practical tools they need to be leaders and organizers in their families, in their communities, and of course within the nation and the states that they live in order to really build a better world. I think all of us were seeing the rise of hatred, we're seeing the rise of hate groups, and we're really seeing a troubling trend targeting people who are of different faiths, of different backgrounds. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a book that can help people not feel powerless, but empower them to make real change in their communities. So I'm so happy to be here today to talk to you as well.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Faizan. Thank you. So the term prophetic activism is a powerful. How do you define it and distinguish it from spectacular or cellular activism, or secular activism, or traditional religious advocacy?
That's a great question. And for many of us, we really understand that faith is an important part of a lot of people's lives. However, faith can also be used to divide people, to create boundaries and barriers so people aren't working together. And in the work that I've done as a civil rights activist, I've been defined by my faith, by my belief in a higher power. And with that belief, it then compelled me to love my neighbor, to get out there and work not only for any worldly benefit, but also for a spiritual benefit. The goal of this book and what I'm really trying to do with people of faith is for them to get out of their comfort zone, for them to get out of their bubbles, whether it's their mosque, their church, their synagogue, or wherever it is, and really look into the society that they're part of and how they can make those societies better, more whole, and more engaged. And my goal with this book is for people of faith to identify themselves with their faith, but not stop there. What does it mean to be a person of faith, but also to help feed the hungry, help the poor, stand up for others who are being targeted or discriminated against? And that's what I'm hoping that this book will empower the community to pursue.
Interesting advocacy, Mr. Faizan. So, how do you reconcile the necessary urgency of activism with the patient, long view often associated with prophetic tradition?
Great question. When you look in history and if you look at the lives of prophets, you realize that all of them were in many ways activists. They came to societies, there were problems going on within those societies, and their goal was to try to preach to the population, organize them, and try to overcome the obstacles within those areas. So if you look at Moses and how he dealt with the pharaohs, if you look at Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, and how he dealt with his societies, all the prophets are similar within these areas. The reality is activism, a lot of people are put off by it because they want to fix climate change today. They want to solve the immigration crisis right now. They want to solve the gun crisis today. But the reality is that you cannot change societies that quickly. It requires long term thinking, patience, and also being able to bring together people who are going to disagree with you in some areas, will agree with you in the important areas. And I think people who want to get into activism, who really want to change the world around them, they have to look at the long term game and not look for quick gratification in order to make the real changes happen within their communities. I'm hoping by looking at the stories of the prophets in the past, you can put yourself into their shoes today in order to make that long term change.
A long-term change. Well, Mr. Faizan, as it's hard, is it prophetic activism more about speaking truth to a power or listening for truth from the margins? How does that dynamic work?
Great question. It's honestly a little bit of both. A lot of us today, especially with social media and the way our media climate is, people want to get out there and talk and kind of share what they're believing to other people. What I've found is that in reality, before you go out there and preach, being able to listen to the people who are being adversely impacted. I've been able to speak to people who are undocumented living here in Dallas, Texas, people who really love America, love the country, have their children growing up here, and now they're deathly afraid because now our immigration forces are able to go after husbands, wives, children, the elderly, and deport them without any due process. By first listening to the people who are marginalized, understand their concerns, it then gives you the tools and the expertise you need to then go out there and really be an advocate and speak truth to power. But it's not just about speaking. One of the mistakes that a lot of people make is that they believe in order to make change just requires talking. But in reality, it requires organizing. How do you build databases? How do you organize people? How do you do all that boring stuff that nobody sees the administrative area in order to actually build a movement that can outlast you? And that's something that I also cover in my book as well. It's not only the inspirational go out there, march and protest and talk, but also how do you build those foundations of change so that way your movement will outlast you.
Will outlast you. Well, Mr. Faizan, tell us a prophet is often a disruptor. How does your framework help activists discern the difference between divine disruption and mere Christianism or burnout?
Burnout is the biggest killer of people who want to create positive change. And not only is it burnout, but also a lot of folks simply get overwhelmed by the problems around them. How can we address gun reform in a reasonable way that can actually see less people being shot on the street? How can we address climate change in a reasonable way that we can see changes in our lifetime with these slow and steady progress? I think a lot of people are impatient, and when that impatience leads to burnout, what we have to remember, and one of the reasons I call this book Powerful Prophetic Activism, is that in the end of the day, what we can control is what we can control. And at the end of the day, there's only so much control that anybody has. And the rest you have to rely on a higher power. You have to realize these problems are sometimes bigger than yourself. And rather than trying to get burned out by saying, well, if I can't fix the problem completely, I shouldn't do anything, which is how most people are. Rather, the powerful prophetic activist is the one who says, I may not be able to solve the whole problem, but what can I do to solve part of the problem that I have some control in? Even the President of the United States, arguably one of the most powerful positions in the world, doesn't have unlimited power. There are only so much that he or she can do as well. And part of this book is to say, listen, there are major problems in the world. You are qualified and able to solve a portion of that problem. And the rest you have to rely on a higher power because that is just the nature of the world. And through that mind scope, through that lens, it will prevent burnout and hopefully it'll create encouragement and excitement to get out there and do something.
Interesting, Mr. Faisal. And you write about inspiring leaders. What are the non negotiable inner qualities, the spiritual or ethical foundations a person must cultivate to be an effective prophetic activist?
One thing I want to mention about being a prophetic activist and inspiring leader is that anyone, and I mean anyone, can be an inspiring leader and prophetic activist. All of us are leaders in our own way. All of us have families that we can lead and be a part of. We have friends and community circles that we can lead and be a part of. And then those who do this on a more professional basis, you have organizations and institutions you can lead and be a part of. The reality is, all of us are leaders in our own way. And what we need to do is to first recognize that I have a position of leadership, I have a voice in certain aspects. What can I do to improve myself? Whether speaking, talking, debating, organizing, getting out there, spreading my message, and also to not always focus on the opposition. I think one of the biggest mistakes that leaders make when they get into this field is they're always thinking, what are they doing? How are they the problems? And whoever they might be, right? And what they're focused on is what those people are doing. And in that sense, what you're doing is you're complaining and criticizing others, which has its legitimate place, but you're not focused on how you can be better tomorrow than you were today. And part of the prophetic leadership model is for you to always have self reflections. You know, in the religion of Islam, which is what I'm a part of, Muslims, we pray 5 different times a day. And during those 5 daily prayers, it's an opportunity for us to stop, disengage with the world, and reflect on ourselves. What am I doing right or wrong, and how can I improve? And through that process, you can increase your ability to be a better leader and, of course, address the problems within your society as well.
Mr. Faisal, tell us. Prophetic voices often face intense criticism and isolation. How do you prepare leaders to sustain their vision and emotional well being in the face of opposition, both from outside and within their own communities?
Oh man, this is a great question to look into. When you walk the path of powerful prophetic activism, when you stop just living your life, letting things happen to you, and actually getting out there to make a change in the world, people are going to both like you, but a lot of people are going to criticize you. And those come in 2 categories. First is your opposition. So, for example, if you promote climate change and you want to address climate change in your society, obviously those who profit and benefit from the erosion of society, from climate change, they're going to oppose you. But the reality is, most leaders and most people are okay with that. They want that criticism and they're ready for that fight. What they're not prepared for is when their own circle, their own people who should be supporting them, they criticize them and they target them. And that is where a lot of people lose heart. And that's where a lot of people become bitter. In fact, if you look at Martin Luther King Jr., who's one of the most famous African American icons in the United States, while he was alive, he was not that well liked, not only by the government and the FBI who were monitoring him constantly, but even within the black community, he was not very popular during his lifetime. He became more popular after he was assassinated and became a martyr than he was while he was even alive. And in fact, for many leaders who are in this area, the sting of having your own people, whatever that is, target you, criticize you, and not support you, that is the absolute worst. And when that happens, we have to realize, why are you doing this? Why are you standing up for a higher cause? It shouldn't be because you want to promote yourself. It shouldn't be because of the people. Rather, you're doing it for a higher power, for a higher purpose. And that higher power, that higher purpose doesn't change. So whether the local people support you or not, whether opposition target you or don't target you, you still have that conviction and you're able to weather those storms. Or as Hamlet mentioned in written by Shakespeare, you're able to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous misfortune and persevere and continue.
Well, Mr. Faisal, tell us, how does one cultivate a crucial prophetic imagination, the ability to see the world that is not yet, while remaining grounded in the practical work of changing the world that is?
When I was a young kid, that was before the internet, right? That's before smartphones. That's before all these distractions happened. The only distraction we had was TV, and those we only had so many channels as well. And for my generation of people, we would daydream a lot. And I think you might be part of that generation that would sit down and daydream about the world and what it could be. Having that ability to dream is so important to be able to see and imagine a better world. However, imagination is important and daydreaming on a better world is important, but you also have to be practical. At the end of the day, you're not going to be able to change every single thing or problem that you see around you. I'll give you one example from a prophet, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. During his life, alcoholism was a major problem. So the prophet could have come out and said, alcohol is forbidden, nobody drink it. But in the Quran, it even tells them if you would have said this, the people would have run away from you. They would not have accepted that. So instead, it went slowly. It first said, don't drink alcohol and pray. And then after that, said, don't drink alcohol and pray before or after. And then it slowly built up until finally there was a commandment that said, don't drink alcohol. But by then, people were ready for it. And the same has to be done with your activism. You get the people you get the society that you get. You can't pick and choose that, but you have to try to create baby steps towards your solution, even though that's hard. And I think now, because we live in a society of TikTok, of Instagram Reels, of instant gratification, a lot of people don't really want to pursue prophetic activism because they want the change to happen today. But the reality is, change, real meaningful change, takes time and is gradual. But by doing that path, by walking that path, it is the most rewarding, and you'll see that change happening, and you'll at least the starts of it within your lifetime.
Mr. Faisal, what does grief, lament, or righteous anger play in this work, and how can leaders channel these powerful emotions constructively rather than being consumed by them?
Of course, one of my teachers, Dio, says that if you're not angry at the world, then you're not alive. What that means is, when we see the heartbreak of war or genocide in Gaza, or you see famine, or you see the flight of migrants who come to the United States and then are deported in such a egregious manner, it's difficult to not feel angry about what's happening. And but the reality is that your anger is an important part of who you are. You should embrace it. And you should also realize that it can be a powerful emotion to get you up, get you out of your comfort zone, to take action. But at the end of the day, you cannot allow your anger to overwhelm and take you over. What that does, and I've seen this happen in a lot of activist circles, is when you get too angry and you're not able to control yourself, what happens is that the group who are all standing for the same cause, rather than creating a united front against their opposition, they turn on each other and they say, well, you're not righteous enough in this cause. You don't have a position that's the right position. So what's happening is that you're all believing in the same thing, you're all part of the same group, but because people are angry and they don't know how to channel it, they can't channel it against the opposition. So they channel it on the people that listen, and that tends to be in their own group. And that creates internal fighting, it creates division, it creates fractionalism, and it destroys movements right away. And the biggest challenge for any movement is that internal fighting. What I recommend for people who are experiencing anger, who are experiencing that emotion, is first embrace it. Know that a power is an important tool to motivate you. But at the same time, anger is not going to pass legislation. Anger is not going to change your school. Anger is not going to make the changes you need, because to do that, you have to be composed, you have to be able to organize, you have to be able to inspire people to make change. And that it can only come through controlling your emotions and moving forward with it. So I think anger is definitely something I've seen a lot of, where people unfortunately destroy themselves or they create infighting, and that has to be controlled.
Indeed, and thank you so much for that amazing, empowering answer, Mr. Faizan. And what your short-term and long-term goals as an author?
My short term goal is to get this book into the hands of as many people as possible, especially people of faith who do stand on the sidelines, who simply judge others without taking action to help others. And I'm hoping that this book will inspire them, especially inspire young people, to give them the skills, the platform, and the ability to really become the heroes in their own narrative. That God has created you specifically, given you a certain audience, given you certain abilities, given you certain powers to make the world a better place. And the greatest obstacle is apathy, meaning that, you know what, the problems are too big. I'm just not going to do anything. FIFA's coming. I'm just going to watch the FIFA game as it comes, right? But no, take action and get involved. That's my short term goal. Long term, what I'm really hoping is that we'll be able to inspire a generation of people. My goal is to get 10,000 people who are inspired through this book, who are fighting for all different causes, and to make them just that much better leaders, to make sure they don't make the same mistakes that I made over the last 15 years of being in civil rights and activism, and they can get the head start. And I think at the end of the day, people make change. And the more people we can get involved who believe in themselves, believe in a bigger cause, and can follow that cause for years at a time, then the world will be a better place, and it'll be a place that all of us will want to live in, and all of us will want to raise our children in.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Faisal, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
My best piece of advice is you are better than I am, but you may not know it yet. I have never met somebody who I've spoken to who I haven't
Yes.
thought, wow, this person has everything they need to make the world a better place if they just believe in themselves. And I want to say you're better than me. You have the ability to make the world better. Just take that action. You'll find that God will then support you as well. And just like he supported the prophets in the past. And I just encourage everybody to take that action, because the only thing missing to make the world a better place is for you to be involved in it.
Yes, indeed. And thank you for that advice, Mister. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Two books that I really recommend is Start With Why. This is a book written by Simon Sinek, and it's a great book because it changes the way we talk. So a lot of time when we talk about what we do, but rather you want to talk about why you do what you do and what inspires you. So that's, I think, a really good book. And another book is Storytelling, The Seven Arts. I think that's one of the best storytelling books that are out there, because at the end of the day, to inspire people and to explain complex issues, you can't just list out the complex issues. You have to be able to tell stories, stories that people can relate to. And then when they find themselves in those stories, they'll then find those solutions. I think these two books are fantastic. And I hope everyone will take their time to read those books as well.
Yes, definitely. It's something good, Mr. Faison. And thank you for those recommended books. So, in the age of digital outrage and performative activism, what are the hallmarks of an action or campaign that is authentically prophetic versus merely Protestant?
That's a really great question. One of the challenges that I think we have today is because this instant gratification. I know a lot of young people that I teach, whether they're in high school, college, or young adults. And for many of them, they'll see a problem, they'll take out their phone, post about that issue, and then they get that dopamine rush and they're done. And of course, that's a great place to start, because everybody has at least a social media account where they can post. Beyond that, though, I want to encourage people, get out of your comfort zone. If you find a problem in the world, you can bet other people have also found that same problem. Connect with those individuals. Get out of your comfort zone, get out of your daily routine, join these different folks, join different causes and organizations, see what you can do to then learn about it and create localized change. What I mean by localized change is that I can't stop CO2 emissions around the world, but I can encourage my local community to clean up my local parks, to encourage there to be more bicycle riding and things like that. So that way we're taking local action for a larger problem. I think all of us, if we're able to not just post on social media, but really do the hard work of getting out there, knowing other people, joining causes, and localizing that problem, that is going to be a game changer and it'll put you on a path. And I talk about this in my book. Is once you start your journey of activism, then you will be put on a path that can take you on a lifelong journey in which you'll find ways and problems and solutions that you would never imagine when you first started that journey. But the step is start that journey and get out there and make that change.
Make the change, people. Make the change for better or good. And Mr. Faisal, what is the most challenging part of your own journey to embody these principles that you wrote into the book as a caution of lesson for others?
I think one of the most difficult problems that I personally face is that you can fight for a cause for years, and yet after the years have ended, it seems like the problem is worse today than it was when you first started fighting for that cause. I'll give you a simple example. So I'm Muslim and I live here in America, and we have the issue of anti Muslim bigotry, or commonly known as Islamophobia. The reality is, when I first started my work with CARE as the civil rights director there, there was anti-Muslim bigotry and Islamophobia in America. Now I feel 15 years later, it's much worse. So much so that just recently, Representative Randy Feinstein, and then also another senator named Tom, I forget his last name, Tuberman, I believe, from Florida. These two members of Congress in the United States Congress have come out and said all Muslims need to be banned from America, that Muslims who live in America that are US citizens should be stripped of their citizenship, and they should all be deported. And I'm just heard that I'm like, wow, like we actually live in a time in a society today where members of Congress are openly pushing that type of bigotry and racism, saying all Muslims have to be kicked out of the country, including my wife, my 7-year-old, my 6-year-old, my 10-year-old children, my grandparents, and others, simply because we happen to be Muslim. Why? Because we're guilt by association. And that could not have been said 15 years ago. So I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is that you can fight for a cause for years and in your lifetime see the problem actually get worse before it gets eventually better. I do believe Islamophobia, racism, hatred, and bigotry are problems that are exploding all around the world. But at the end of the day, the long term is that the world is becoming more diverse. People are moving and mixing together, and these types of racism and bigotries will only become diminished over time. But you have to be able to fight for a cause for years, see that it's getting worse, but have faith in your heart that it will get better. But you have to stay the path and continue the fight.
Yes, it will be better sooner or later. And thank God, soon for sure. And Mr. Faison, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in third season, and my food 101 in sixth season as well, geography 101 love letters, Movie 101 review, Music 101 fourth season, Science 101, Sex 101 in his second season, and my baby podcast, Mental Health. Law 101, Bible Verses 101, and Entrepreneurship 101. And coming this December too, my Motivation 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Faizan, tell us finally, for the listeners feeling a steering to engage more deeply but ensure where to start. What is the first small step toward becoming a powerful prophetic activists in their own sphere of influence?
All of us have been created for a purpose, and that's the prophetic model. That even though you and I might think, well, listen, I'm a nobody. I just live in the suburbs. I live in my normal house. I have a normal life. I have a normal job. I am not the one that creates change. That's for the politicians. That's for somebody else. My best advice for you is that you are the one that can create that change, that you are the perfect person that can make an impact on the issue that you specifically care about and that you really are passionate about. The best way to get started is to first internalize that there is a problem in the world and I am going to be the one that solves it. And I'm not going to wait for some hero or somebody to come and fix that issue. No, I'm going to fix it. Once you have that mindset, then you'll find that God will open doors for you, will open pathways for you that you never would have thought of, and He'll change the course of your life for the better. The journey of powerful prophetic activism is not easy, but it is rewarding. It is something that creates deep meaning in your life. And by seeing those changes happening and becoming a better leader yourself, you will feel fulfillment. And I think part of what we're missing within the society that we live in today is that a lot of us kind of go through the motions, go through our day to day lives, and before we know it, we're older, our lives have gone by, and we look back and think, what have I done to make the world a better place? And that is what I want you to start today. There's no age that's too young or too old. Take that step. Know that you have been created by God for a purpose, and follow that purpose through leadership and service is something absolutely extraordinary. I started this journey 15 years ago because anti-Muslim bigotry and racism was targeting me and my family, my community, so I felt I had no choice. And by taking that first step, God had brought me from where I was through a lifelong journey where I got to meet politicians, go to Washington, D.C., lobby here in Texas, speak in front of the news, write a book, meet amazing people, and none of that would have happened if I didn't take that first step. In the Islamic tradition, there's a saying, and I'll end with this: if you take one step towards God, God will take two steps towards you. If you come towards God walking, He'll come to you to running. If you go to running, He'll come to you even faster. Meaning that if you just take those initial steps, then God will reciprocate with greater steps and will take care of your affairs. And I hope that is what can inspire all of us to make that change and make the world a better place.
A better place to live for sure. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Faison. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now? Mr. Faison, can you please invite our listeners to support you?
Yes, I would love to invite all of you to support me. Purchase Prophetic Activism, download the audiobook, and so grateful for you giving the opportunity to come and speak with today.
Likewise, Mr. Faison, I'm so grateful that you are one of my guests on Book 101 Review. So keep up the good work. We support you, and please do come over to my other podcast, Abstract S, and let's talk about something that are good for you and for the world. So, Mr. Faison, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a blessed day. Bye.
Modika people, see you soon.